I want to share a story with you this morning. I know I've shared it before, so if you've heard it before, then I think it's worth the telling twice. But it is a story where God met with one of his beloveds at a time of deepest need and showed very, very great love to him. In fact, it was an occasion when God met with this man when the man was beyond his ability to meet with God. Have you ever felt like that? When you are completely beyond ability to meet with God because you are just wrung out in every way, emotionally, physically, spiritually, and God comes to you. God comes to you as God came to this man. You won't be surprised that it's Elijah. Has to be, doesn't it? And prior to this occasion, when Elijah was about as low as he could possibly be, there had been a number of traumatic situations for him. I'm not going to recount them all, but if you know anything of Elijah's story, you'll know some of the situations he's been through, some of the circumstances. And the most recent ones before this incident was the confrontation on Mount Carmel with the prophets of Baal and the sacrifices there, and that end up with the prophets of Baal being killed. And then the death threat from Jezebel, who was most displeased that these men had been killed because they were her men, if you like. And so she was really put out, to say the least, and she issued a death threat. And sometimes you can keep going, can't you? And you can keep going, and you can keep going, and you can keep going, and you can keep going. And then something happens, and all the dominoes go down. All the cards fall. Everything just collapses. That straw that breaks the camel. And that death threat from Jezebel was the straw that broke this man. It wasn't the straw itself. It was the culmination of many, many things that had happened to him. So I'm going to read from 1 Kings 19, verses 1 to 9. Now Ahab, who was the king, told Jezebel, his wife, everything Elijah had done and how he had killed all the prophets with the sword. So Jezebel sent a messenger to Elijah to say, "May the gods deal with me, be it ever so severely, if by this time tomorrow I do not make your life like one of them." There it is. There's the threat. Elijah was afraid and ran for his life. When he came to Beersheba in Judah, he left his servant there, while he himself went a day's journey into the wilderness. He came to a broom bush, sat down under it, and prayed that he might die. "I've had enough, Lord," he said. "Take my life. I am no better than my ancestors." Then he lay down under the bush and fell asleep. All at once, an angel touched him and said, "Get up and eat." He looked around, and there by his head was some bread baked over hot coals and a jar of water. He ate and drank and then lay down again. The angel of the Lord came back a second time and touched him and said, "Get up and eat, for the journey is too much for you." So he got up and ate and drank. Strengthened by that food, he traveled 40 days and 40 nights until he reached Horeb, the mountain of God. And there he went into a cave and spent the night. Up until this point in Elijah's life, he's shown great wisdom, he's shown leadership, he's shown courage and faith and endurance and stamina. He's endured desert, He's endured death of the widow that he was lodging with, the death of her son. And now he's fleeing. And I don't know what kind of stories you've heard about Elijah at this point, what kind of sermons or preaching you've heard about him. But I've heard quite a lot of preaching that says at this point Elijah failed. Elijah disappointed God. Elijah let down God. Have you heard that kind of thing? Have you heard that preached? Some and some. You haven't? Well, that's good. That's good. The commentators also say a similar thing, actually. One of them says he was a terrible failure. Another says how the mighty have fallen. Is it terrible to speak of this man, God's prophet, in this way? Doesn't sit well with me, because I think there's more going on in Elijah's life than this. I think this is a man who is overwhelmed to the point of burnout and probably beyond. And if any of you have suffered burnout, you'll know that for a long, long time as you go through burnout, actually you don't even realize that you're going through it until it's so overwhelming that it becomes obvious to you and everybody else around you. We all have limits of coping, don't we? And some of us can cope with a lot, a very, very great deal. But all of us have a breaking point. And for some of us, it might be a long way down the road. For some of us, it might not be that far. But we all have a point at which we can't go on. And this was Elijah's point. At the very least, he's in crisis. At the very least, he's in crisis. I don't know whether you enjoy crises. Some people thrive on them, it seems to me, and kind of get some kind of, satisfaction at being able to deal with a crisis well. And there's nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that at all. But I think we'd probably all agree that when you have one crisis on top of a crisis on top of a crisis, and you can barely deal with one before you're into the next one, and you've barely dealt with that one and the first one, and you're into another one, there's no time to recover in between. And that's been a bit like what it has been for Elijah. And so we could say that he's at the end of his tether, at the end of his rope, however you want to describe it. He's under extreme mental, physical, spiritual duress. He's run a long way, physically depleted, probably hasn't eaten. And he's completely wretched as he collapses against this tree. And I suspect if you look back over life, maybe even where you are now, you can resonate with something of Elijah's story there. We all deal with accidents and near misses and things that come out the blue and things that you can see happening a mile off and then happen. Shocking, some of it. Some of it's to do with other people, some of it's to do with ourselves and our own decisions. But some of it most definitely is not our own consequence. Some of it are just things that happen. And Elijah legged it. To say it in a colloquial kind of way, he legged it. But there's more ways of legging it than just using your legs, aren't there? We can leg it while we're still at home. Don't know if you've had that kind of experience where you withdraw emotionally. And so you don't engage with people around you. You watch the television but got no idea what's going on. You read a book but don't take it in. People have conversations with you and you say yes and no but actually can't tell after the conversation what's been said. You don't know what you've agreed to. And you don't know what point you've missed, and then somebody says, well, I did tell you that, and you did say yes. I just got no awareness of it. So he's in the middle of a crisis, a collapse. He needs help. And he collapses beneath it and vocalizes his need by saying, I've had enough, God. I've had enough. I want to die. Absolutely honest with God. Isn't it good that there are prayers that God doesn't answer? This is a prayer that God doesn't answer. He does something completely different. So I suppose in a way he answers the cry. He doesn't do it in the way that Elijah prayed for him to do it. And in the Hebrew for that word enough, I've had enough, God. There is a sense of real heaviness, weightiness, burden in that word. And God answers very differently to the way that Elijah desired. And having prayed, he goes to sleep. It's probably the sleep of an exhausted man, that kind of sleep where you're spark out. And then the Bible says, all at once an angel touched him. How unkind, you might think. This poor man, exhausted, he's just got off to sleep, and an angel wakes him up. What we don't know is the span of time between those occurrences. And actually, all at once isn't a measure of time. It's been translated from a word that in the older translations of the Bible would say, behold. Behold, an angel touched him. And in that word, behold, is a depth of meaning. Behold, an angel touched him. And the Hebrew for that word is hineni. And translated, it says, here I am. Here I am. So who is it that's saying, here I am, to Elijah? It's God. God has come to him in this moment of deepest need. Here I am, says God. It's worth waking up for, isn't it? I'd say, worth waking up for. And there are other examples of hineni in the Old Testament and the New Testament. I'm not going to go into all of them, but when you see behold, you can think it means here I am. It's often in the Psalms, actually. But Abraham, for example, said, here I am to God. Moses said, here I am to God. When God spoke to him in the burning bush, Moses said, here I am. He didn't say behold, he just said, here I am. Here I am. Samuel said, here I am. In the temple when he heard God calling to him, he didn't know it was God. Here I am, he said. So it's that availability to God. Here I am. But in this moment, God is saying it to Elijah. Here I am. I'm available. Here I am. I'm here for you, Elijah, in this moment of deep need. Hineni also includes a sense of yearning for connection, for deeper connection with God. And so when Abraham and Moses and Samuel and others said it to God, they were expressing that desire for connection. Here is God expressing that desire for connection with Elijah. It's lovely, isn't it? Isn't it lovely? Such is his desire for relationship. Despite all that's gone on for Elijah, he's saying, here I am. I want that relationship with you. That doesn't sound to me like God thinks he's failed or that God is disappointed in him. That sounds like a God who is deeply loving this man and wants to bring him out of that place. Doesn't that sound like that to you? So at the moment of Elijah's greatest and deepest need, there's God right there. right there. And what's more, with food and water. Freshly baked bread. Cool, I bet that was good, don't you? And water. What an encounter. And actually, if you look at the story of Elijah's life, it's the third miraculous provision for him of food and water. And there is nothing between Elijah and God. There's nothing. God doesn't seem to ask him anything. What are you doing here, Elijah? How have you come here? Why did you take any notice of that woman Jezebel? There's none of that. Absolutely no questions. There is no recrimination. Silly man, why did you do that for? None of that. There is just love, 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 and provision. That's what there is. Didn't point out all the mistakes that he might have made and the decisions that he could have made better. Doesn't do any of that. And then Elijah goes to sleep again, and he wakes a second time. God is there again to feed him and strengthen him and water him again in order that he would be strengthened for the journey to go on. This is tender, loving mercy, deep, deep love. And it's that same God, same love, same tender mercy that's available for us at whatever your level of need now, whether it's a deep need or whether it's actually not deep at this moment. Actually, life's all right for you. It's there. God is here saying, I'm here for you. I'm here.